this is Turnbay again. This is a follow-up to my previous video about setting up a virtual testing and development system. This video is also aimed at primarily at E-UNI WebDev team members, but again, I'll make it public for anybody else who wants to learn how to do this stuff. But additionally, this video is aimed at those WebDev team members who also don't really know much about MySQL database administration. And maybe they don't necessarily want to learn all the ins and outs of it. So you just want to get your static data export up and running so that you can, use it for programming without learning how to become a full-blown database admin. So this video should be pretty quick and easy, and in fact that's why I'm not even bothering to take the time to make proper slides or anything. So yay, WordPad. In this video we're going to be going over the basic steps to set up an EVE-Online static data export onto a MySQL database, including setting up the proper user logins and so on. And nothing beyond that, nothing fancy. We're also going to assume that you've already followed the steps in the previous video and you set up your virtual test system. And in fact, we're even going to assume that you've done only that and nothing else. Okay, so first let's get ourselves a copy of an export of the official static data export. To do that, we'll just open up Firefox and head over to wiki.eveid.net. So that's wiki.eve-id.net, and that takes us over to the Eve Development Network wiki page. And anybody who's done any serious development for EVE Online probably already has this particular page bookmarked, and if you don't, definitely do it. But what we are interested in going into is over here, the static data dump link at the very front page of the wiki. So if you go into that, you'll then want to go to the conversion section and take a look here for the latest MySQL individual, well, not necessarily the individual tables export, but essentially the latest MySQL. Remember that CCP themselves export it into an MS SQL server in database format. So EVE Online community is pretty good about getting it converted pretty quickly as soon as the SCCP exports it, and they convert it into several other database formats, including MySQL. And typically, even though it just says individual MySQL tables here for Retribution 1.0, just head on over to one of the links and check out if they actually have the latest version, because, for example, as of this recording, the latest version is actually Odyssey. The Odyssey expansion has been released, but a lot of times this wiki page has not yet been updated. So typically what I'll do is just go ahead and click on some of these links and take a look if maybe it's just a case that the wiki page hasn't been updated, but the conversions have already been done. Now that I clicked on it, I can see that yes, in fact, there is an Odyssey 1.0 export, and we'll go ahead and click into that until we see essentially this structure here. If you read this up top, you can see that it says the original SQL.zip or BZ2 or GZ contains a single compressed SQL file containing all the tables. The all.zip or all.bz2 or all.gz contains each table in a separate table.sql files. So we really don't need all the tables separately in different files, so we really just want the original files. And it doesn't really matter which one of these we use. I'm just going to go ahead and use the original.sql.zip file. But I'm not just going to click on this. What I'm going to do is right click and choose copy link location, because as you may have noticed, I'm actually in my Windows browser right now, but we finished setting up our VM, our virtual machine, and we want to get it into there. So all I'm going to do right now is get a copy of the link so that I could download it into the VM. So I'll minimize this, and you probably have noticed down here that I actually do have the VM still running. I just haven't minimized, but here we go. This is the VM itself, and as you can see, it's in the login screen, but that does mean that it's still running. And I'm actually not going to go into it because I really don't need to load up the entire desktop just to do what I'm about to do. I'm just going to do it all in command line just to make it quick and easy. So what I'm actually going to do is just open up PuTTY and connect to it through there. You'll see that I have made a E-UNI dev local entry, and all that really does, if I load it, is just log me into my IP address 192.168.56.1, just like in the previous video. So I'm just going to open that and log in as myself. And now that I'm here and I'm in my home directory, just CD to make sure, then I'm just going to do a wget for that URL that I copied out from the browser and wait till it downloads. And it might take a little while, so I'm just going to pause this video until it's complete. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, the download has completed. It's downloaded original SQL.zip. If I just do an ls, you can see it right there. And I'm just going to make a temp directory and unzip it into there. First of all, just to make sure that it actually downloaded okay. If there was any kind of corruption, then it'll say so when you try to unzip it. And you can see that I just have an original.sql file, and that is actually a SQL dump of the entire static data export. So let's go ahead and set up MySQL. The first thing you want to do, remember that I'm assuming right now that you've just installed everything like was detailed on the previous video, so you haven't really actually done anything with MySQL yet, which means that the root account for MySQL, the root login, doesn't yet have a password. And so you probably will want to set up a root password first of all. So the quick way to do that is just run MySQL admin. --user equals, -u root password, and then the root password that you want to use. I'm just going to use MySQL root. I don't really need to have it super secure because, again, this is just a VM on my local system, but again, use whatever password you want. And now we have a root password, essentially. So let's go ahead and run MySQL. We want to log into it as root. So do a -u root -p, and then enter the password that you just created. And now the first thing we want to do to set all of this up is to create a user to log into the database with. So the command for that is just create user, in single quotes, the user's name. We're going to just call it EveData so that it mirrors what the production server is using. @ and then again in single quotes, localhost, and then identified by, and this is where you type in its password, EveData's password, in single quotes. So we'll just give it a password of EveData. And again, this is just going to be a quick and dirty thing. I'm not going to go into detail on what exactly all the little things that we're using, why exactly we're using localhost and so on and so forth. If you want to learn more about that, then you could just basically look up MySQL administration on the web, or you could ask your fellow WebDev team members, and they will probably help you out. So next, what we want to do is create the actual database. And the command to do that is just create database, and again, we'll just call it EveData. You could call it anything you want. This is essentially just going to be your schema name. And then we want to grant access to our user to that database. So just type in grant select on evedata.star to evedata at localhost, exactly how I have it typed in here. And that's essentially it. That's going to grant essentially read-only access to the EveData user on this local machine to our new database. And now all we really want to do is populate that database with the static data dump. So just type quit to go back out to your shell. ls again so that you see that the original.sql file is in here, and here's where we do the actual import. Command is MySQL -u, and remember EveData itself only has read access, so we can't do the import as EveData, so we have to do the import as root. -p so that it actually asks for the root password, and then the database that we are going to use, again, we just called it EveData. And to that you want to pipe in your original.sql file. And that's it. Really, when you hit enter, it's just going to ask for the root password. Remember, you're logging in as root right now. So what the heck did I use as the root password? Oh yeah. So you type in your root password and then you just wait. It's essentially just going through all of the original SQL commands in that file now and populating your database. And that's it. As soon as this is done, you are all done. And we'll do a quick test afterwards just to make sure that it worked okay, but for now it might take a little while, so again I'm going to just pause this video and I'll catch you when it is all complete. Okay, and it looks like we are all done. It'll just drop you right back out to the command prompt. So not really a lot of feedback, although, you know, if there were any errors, chances are that it would have just spit them out at you. But let's just go ahead and do a quick test to make sure that it worked correctly. And this time we're going to use the user Eve data to also test to make sure that Eve data itself has the correct access to access the database, and then do a -p so that it asks you for the password. Now that we're in, let's just do a quick use Eve data to use the Eve database, and then we will just run a quick command such as select category name from inf categories. And it looks like it worked. So if you scroll back, you should just be able to see all the different category names that are stored in the inf categories table. So all right, we are all done. Again, just type quit to go back to your shell, and that's pretty much the quick and dirty instructions to get the static data export set up and running. That's it. We're done. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me about them in the forums, or you know, ask anybody else on the WebDev team. They might be able to help you as well. And later on, I might be doing some more, you know, quick videos on how to further set up your dev test environment. So keep an eye out for those. Until then, this is Turn Bay signing out.